Are you an individual who sees the cup half full or half empty? When you walk into a room, do you see what's lacking? Like in the case of the missing tiles syndrome, 99 tiles on the ceiling, but one's missing. Of course, naturally, our eye goes to the missing tile and we sense what's lacking rather than what is there. Are you by personality more that type, seeing what's missing or seeing what you have? Are you a more boisterous, loud individual or more quiet, reserved individual? More embracing others or more reserved, like your corner where you could read your book privately, and that's what you prefer? Welcome to Tanya Today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zichron Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We have a double header today, learning from Shabbos and today's class. So the 13th letter, the Alter Rebbe quotes from King David in Tehillim in Psalms, Psalm 31, where he says, "How abundant is your goodness, which you have hidden away for those who fear you, which you have wrought for those who trust in you before man." And in the conclusion, he says in the verse, that revealed to the sight of man. So, what comes out from this verse and from many other places? There are two different types of divine service, two different kinds of levels, two different types of people. There are souls that are rooted in the right side of the divine order of things, and souls that are rooted on the left side. What's the characterization of this? Well, on the left side, the characterization would be someone who walks covertly with God, meaning modestly, walks modestly. In prayer, that would be that you weep in secret places. And in engaging in Torah, you would study Torah in your own corner, so to speak, quietly, unassuming form of service. Now, why would a person be that way? Because the left side is a gevura, is contraction. It derives from the limitation of divine energy, divine light that the soul is irradiated with, and therefore it does things in that manner. It does things in that manner. So, for example, further example, when you distribute charity, you would give according to your means. And as our sages say, not more than a fifth. Likewise, when you come to study Torah, you do what you're obliged to do. You fulfill your duty. You have to set aside times for to study Torah. You set aside times. When you teach sort of very a sense of awesomeness in the teaching. You even you cast awe upon the pupils. Now, this personality type, like studying Torah, or whatever they do. See, the left side contraction, gvura, means very, oh my gosh, lost the word. Strict, but strict in the sense of very perceptive of every moment, the value of every moment. Everything has its place. Just like, every cubbyhole has its what needs to be put in that cubbyhole. You're very the right side is very discriminating. That's the word. Very discriminating. And therefore, it's not like you're doing just to fulfill what your obligation is. You're not doing it merely to fulfill your obligation. And then, no. You're following the code of Jewish law and very discriminating. This hour, I've got this obligation of study Torah. Next hour, I have the obligation of prayer. Next hour, I've got the obligation. All these things, as you see the obligation, and everything has its cubbyhole, has its portal, and you do everything in that very discriminating, limited fashion. But it's not negative. It's a very positive thing. Huh? It's a very disciplined. A very disciplined. Yes, exactly. As opposed to a soul that comes from the right side of things, which is chesed, expansiveness, serving God without concealment. In other words, you walk with God expansively, not covertly, not modestly. Expansively, the Ruzhner Rebbe used to dress like a king. He had gold boots, cane of gold. Garb was like he didn't have heels on his shoes, but he walked expansively. That's what his soul was. I mean, we're going to get an example of this in a moment, right? Right? No limitations.
Shoes.
Huh? Yeah, shoes didn't have soles. Yeah. In other words, his form of service was exemplifying expensiveness, right? No restraint in the spirit of generosity when it came to charity, came to study Torah, doing commandments. There was never enough. It was always, that soul that's like exuberant in the mitzvah. The other soul did the mitzvah and could totally, but very discerning, very exacting, very precise. You didn't get the sense of exuberance from that person. Here you get the exuberance, right? So who's right? The one on the right or the one on the left? Which one? Which is the right path? They're both the right path. Actually, we all have a natural tendency to be one or the other. That's who we are by the soul makeup that God gave us. Our duty is to incorporate the other side that I'm not naturally. So I'm naturally very precise in everything, very disciplined. I also have to incorporate expensiveness. So the Ruzhner, he had the two, right? He dressed expensively, but he had no souls. Right? You have to comprise both, chesed and gvura. Where do we see this? We see this between Hillel and Shammai. Right? We know that Beis Shammai, they were much more stringent than Beis Hillel. Right? Why? Why was Beis Shammai more stringent? Because their souls were rooted in the left. The left is much more precise, much more exacting, therefore much more stringent. Hillel, on the other hand, came from the right side. So they were more saw things from the right side, expansiveness to incorporate, to include. So therefore they would render something much more permissible as a result. Right? That you could now, this thing was permissible, that you could elevate it. Nevertheless, in many matters, we see that Beis Shammai was more lenient than Beis Hillel. Generally speaking, not the case, but in many times they were. And likewise, the other way around. Beis Hillel was sometimes more stringent than Beis Shammai. Now, if your soul is rooted in one kind of character quality, then it should run, consistently. If you are aligned with the divine order of your soul, then you should be one and not the other. No. Why? Because supernal holiness incorporates opposites. So chesed incorporates gvura, and gvura incorporates chesed. Therefore, there needs to be a union between them. Even though chesed, indiscriminate giving and discriminate gvura are very opposite one from the other, but in holiness, they're mutually incorporated. So since Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, they were holy people, therefore, even though the nature of their soul was one quality, they, being aligned with their true nature of their soul, had the capacity to incorporate another aspect that's the opposite. And that reflected itself, therefore, that Beis Shammai sometimes was more lenient than Beis Hillel, and Beis Hillel was sometimes more stringent than Beis Shammai, because of the holiness of their souls incorporated the opposite nature. Parenthetically, and the Alter Rebbe doesn't say it here, but we had that actually in the second letter that the Alter Rebbe wrote. And in that letter, he that in Klippa, in the negative force, whatever you are by nature, you're going to mutually exclusive. You're not going to incorporate because there's no bittul, there's no self-effacement, there's no submitting. I am what I am, right? Where else do we see this? Abraham, Avram Avinu, Abraham, he was the embodiment of chesed, of kindness. And yet, he garbed himself with the attribute of Gvura when he took his son, his only son that he loved, Yitzchak, Isaac, and brought him as an offering. Right? God, what does God say? Now I know that you're truly God-fearing. I mean, before that he wasn't? Well, before that he served. Before that he served perhaps only with his nature. And maybe it wasn't because he was serving God. But when he could go opposite of his nature, that was a proof that even when his nature of kindness was also the service of God and wasn't just instinctually serving. That which the scripture characterizes that that Abraham is my loved one, and characterizes Isaac as the dread of Isaac, of Yitzchak. That's only about what their main character quality is and what's sort of secondary, what's front burner, back burner, right? So Yitzchak, Isaac's main divine service was the fear of God, meaning the presence of God that was made it a sense of awe. And his love of God was more hidden and concealed, but it was there when necessary, right? The opposite is the case with Abraham. His father was the embodiment of chesed, of kindness. That was his manifest, general go-to quality. And back burner was gevura, was concealed. But when needed, it was accessed very easily because he was truly aligned to the source of his soul, didn't corrupt his soul, and therefore was able to incorporate something that's an opposite quality of the usually revealed part of his soul. Now, this is then what it means. He said that there's an abundant goodness. God has an abundant, his goodness for two types. Those who remember the verse from Tehillim, from Psalm 31, for those who have hidden away, right? Because their service is more out of awe. And those who trust in you, as we'll see, those are the right side of kindness, right? Both have an abundance of your goodness. Abundance. And that abundance of goodness is, it says, it doesn't say bi'arecha, but li'arecha, not within those who have awe of you, but to those that have awe of you, which the precision in that word means that abundant of God's goodness is given to that individual, right? Which means without limit, without measure, because God's goodness is abundant, meaning without measure. It's given to that person who is from the left side of Gevura, who serves God in a way that is more contracted and concealed, yet that goodness, immense goodness, is abundantly given, which is essentially a quality of the right, to and is given to that individual. Right, like the house of Shammai, right? So God's giving, as he's giving to the ones who trust. Who's someone who trusts? Who do you trust? Right? You trust a beloved friend who acts in your best interest, meaning that they love you. That's who you trust. Because you believe that they're doing what's best for you. That's love. That's the right side. So God's goodness there is more expansive, not in a state of contraction, right? And it's revealed to that soul on the right, God's abundant, infinite giving, goodness. And for the person on the left, it's also given, but it's something that is more not internalized as much, but encompassing the individual. But it will reveal itself, that abundant goodness, when a person gives unstintingly. Unstintingly. So then God's abundant goodness will be revealed. As we know that there's two types of kindness. There's a kindness that's limited and a kindness that's without a contraction, limitless. Rav chesed. So there's chesed olam, chesed, kindness of the world, just as the world is limited, so the kindness is also limited. But then there's Rav chesed, an abundant form of giving, right? And as we explain, abundant means even if it's your last, dollar in your pocket, you'll give it to charity. Even if you have to borrow, you'll give to charity. Even if you give it all away, more than 20%, you'll give. That's abundant. That means without limitation. It also means that you give in a way that's not what you're comfortable in giving, but what the person needs. You give in such a fashion That's also abundant, limitless giving. Those from previous times we spoke about it, right? Now, what's important is when you give in this abundant way, then what happens is you get abundance from above, because when you give in a limited fashion, then you could have the attribute of limitation above that will withhold God's abundant giving to you, because maybe there's a judgment above that is saying, well, the person isn't deserving of an abundant giving from heaven, but a limited, contracted one. But in order to get the abundant is when we give abundantly, and then there can be nothing that will hold back from the abundance that God will flow down and give to us. And in conclusion of this letter, says, after the above words, from the depths of my soul, I seek to arouse the infinite abundance of benevolence that is concealed in the heart of every individual in the Hasidic brotherhood, so that it be manifest from concealment to revelation and be translated into action. Fill your hands unto God by giving charity with a full and open hand. Through the trusted barrier of this message, that this letter was sent to the communities, should be suffice for the discerning. I'm not spelling it out, for it's not necessary. The above will suffice. These are the words of the one who loves you with all of his soul, and who seeks your welfare with heartfelt and soulful longing. At this point, the Alter Rebbe signs the letter. Shnei Zalman, the son of my master, my father, our mentor, and Rabbi Baruch. Rabbi Baruch. Very powerful. That was the 13th letter, emphasizing the different types of personalities, but to get the abundant goodness of God, even though we're a certain kind of character quality, but we need to be inclusive of the opposite of what my nature is. And in this instance, if you're more of the Gevura left side, you need to incorporate abundant and stintingly giving to get that abundance from on high. Very powerful. I think I saw some questions. Brett, how are the limits of leniency determined? Based on the teachings. That's based on how you study Torah, right? How you perceive. So, for example, this is Torah, Tanya, and Brett, if I asked you, what's your opinion about this book? Well, you would say Lessons in Tanya, a picture of the Alter Rebbe, right? I would say, well, my opinion is, fill your hands unto God, giving charity with a full and open hand. I'm not seeing this. You're not seeing this. Third person will give this opinion. Who's right? All right. So Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai saw different perspectives of the same Torah. Why did they see different perspectives? Because of their soul. Not because I just happen to be looking here and you happen to be looking there. That's just the metaphor part, right? That's lacking in the metaphor. Why do I see what I see? Because my soul is rooted in above, that God made it in a certain way. So that's how I'm going to perceive, that's what I'm going to see, and that's how I'm going to look at things, right? The point over here is that if you're looking at it in a holy way, means you're aligned with the root source of your soul. Well, even though you are more chesed or you're more gvura in your soul, but holiness means mutually inclusive of another quality of your soul, the opposite. So if you're the right, then the left incorporates, and the left incorporates the right. That's why Hillel or Beis Shammai, even though they primarily saw things in a more stringent manner because they saw more contraction, more limitation in their study and when they perceived, yet they would be lenient from the right side. So it's based on how you're perceiving and understanding a verse in Torah, understanding a law, and so on and so forth. That's where it would come up. Yeah. Thank you, Brett. Excellent question. Jeff has a question. Chesed is abundance. When would this ever be determined when serving God? Detrimental, sorry. Excellent question. Someone who's an addict, and because you are abundantly giving without, parameters, so then you're going to give to the drug addict money. That's terrible. That's terrible. That's one example of where chesed will be detrimental. Another example would be it's before dinner, and your 3-year-old wants ice cream first, right, before dinner. So chesed is giving, abundant giving. So you give. So you won't give dinner first. You'll give the ice cream first. Maybe you have to be discerning then and be more the left, right? Discerning that this is detrimental for the child. They should have the ice cream before dinner. And that they should, have nutritious, good food. And maybe they shouldn't have the ice cream at all because maybe, today is not ice cream day. Maybe, they should only get it when they did something special. Maybe today's special day, so let's give the ice cream. Well, whatever. Point is, you're being discerning, creating a boundary. Dinner, then ice cream. Or tonight's not a special, tomorrow is going to be a special day. Just, giving possibilities on, not giving parenting tips. I'm giving just a possibility of how it could be played out, right? So that would be detrimental that you give the ice cream first because you're abundantly giving. Thank you, Jeff. Excellent question. Lori, how can a simple person with a kind disposition know when to be discerning? So when you're having a challenge to go against your nature, tell you what I do. I think to myself, I sit, sometimes I will say a kapitel Tillim, sometimes I'll learn Torah to elevate myself into a different space, into a good space, a holy space. And then I ask God, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? God Almighty, what do you want? Sometimes I picture myself in front of the Rebbe, what's the right path? Actually, the Rebbe is truly aligned with the divine, and by thinking the Rebbe, picturing the Rebbe in your mind, it gives me strength. God, you're not picturing in your mind, but the Rebbe who is truly aligned with Hashem. What do you want from me? Right? And try to be honest about it, and not try to find just what's easy for me or my natural disposition to follow, because maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't follow my natural disposition. Excellent question. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, wonderful. We begin the 14th letter. This letter is written to arouse the old love and the fondness for the Holy Land, so that it burn like fiery flames from the inwardness of the individual, from the depths of the heart. As this very day, God has set his spirit upon us, a spirit of generosity, so that the people volunteer to consecrate themselves to God with a full and generous hand. With one increase after another from year to year, continually rising and excelling themselves, in keeping with the measure of the level of divinity called Kodesh Elyon, supreme holiness, which is another name for the attribute of Chokhmah, translated as wisdom, which that Chokhmah radiates the Holy Land and is constantly renewing its quality and increasing its quantity. As the verse is written, forever are the eyes of the Lord your God upon it, upon the land of Israel, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So we're going to take apart this. What does it mean? Eyes of God. What's that metaphor? Upon it, and beginning of the year to the end of the year. If it's beginning of the end to the end of the year, what does that mean? It means it's constantly. So just say constantly, the eyes of God are upon the land. But you have to say beginning to the end of the year. So it's known that Hashem b'chachma yisad aretz, the God by chachma, this quality, this divine attributes chachma, which again we translate it as wisdom, doesn't really bring across what it means. He established the earth. Malchus is like, it's called Eretz Elyoina, the heavenly earth. Now, there's no physical earth in heaven, right? But what is earth? The lowest point in this world, right? Water is above the earth. Sort of, well, yes and no. It's actually, earth should be below it, water should be above it, and God, out of his kindness, doesn't allow that. And right, air and fire are above. So Eretz is land, is the lowest thing. So out of the 10 divine attributes, Malchus, royalty, is the lowest of the 10 divine attributes, and therefore it's called land. Well, kind of a holy land. But Eretz Elyoina, the heavenly holy land. Now, it is aligned, Malchus of Atzilus is aligned with Holy Land up there, with Holy Land down here. And that's not Holy Cow. It's only Holy Land. Right? And therefore, the land of Israel is called Eretz Chayfetz, a desired land, because it's a reflection of the attribute of Malchus, of divine royalty, kingship, which, again, the last of the 10, so it means supernal holy land, right? And that's reflected down here. Now, Malchus takes the flow of divine energy from Chachma, because as we said, Chachma is what's responsible for creation. It takes from Chachma, which Chachma is the vessel for the Ein Sof, the limitless light of God, and then is the funnel to radiate down in this physical world, that it should shine in its counterpart down here, which is the Holy Land, the land of Israel down here. That's what it's doing. Now, since Chachma is the vessel for the Ein Sof, the limitless of God, light of God, right? And that's now funneled through Malchus, right? Supernal land above, and it's, radiates down here. How does it radiate down here without limit? What does that mean without limit? It means that we can always go higher and higher and bring more of a divine revelation. Actually, with that, we finish today's class, kind of leaving us in the middle, which will tomorrow start to explain how the light of God is diffused within the land of Israel, from the land of Israel to the rest of the world. That will understand how Israel is the focal point of the world for good and for the opposite, right? Based on this idea. But for that, you're going to have to come back tomorrow. Any questions? Another cliffhanger. Yes. A reminder, tonight, 6:30, there's going to be Torah studies. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. And of course, Rambam. It's coming up right now. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you for Chabad, Such and Kadeshim, Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have an amazing, great day.